Hi everyone, Sylv here. Hope you're well. Welcome to part 2 of getting started with watercolours, and today we're going to be looking at paint and palettes as part 2 of materials. So we're going to look at the format that paint comes in, we're going to look at quality of paints, colours, and then we'll quickly look at palettes. So let's talk about watercolour paints and the format that it comes in. So generally it comes in either a pan, which is a little box of paint, and often the paint is in quite a hard format in that. This is actually a half pan. You can also buy full pans, and also we get paint that comes in a tube. In the tube it is much more viscous, it's thicker, and it actually dissolves quite easily in water. You can see that, and it's quite a nice format to use. Let's just put that lid on a little bit tighter. There we go. Right, lovely. So the thing that obviously there's difference here is the amount. So what I find with these half pans is it's really difficult sometimes if you're doing a big piece of work to get enough paint on your brush. So I like these for when I go out and use it in my little mobile set, which is this one. So this set actually comes with about 24 colours, and you can add your own pans to it. As I say, these are just half pans. These are some empty ones that I've got in case I want a different colour, and this fits quite nicely in here. So when I'm off out on my bike, I've got wells here. It's got a lot of space. It's compact and it's great, and it fits in my bike bag. But I only use that when I'm doing small painting sketches outdoors. If I'm going to be teaching, or if we're going to be covering paintings like this one, for example, if you can see here, this is just a little bit bigger than A4, and this is just a test piece I've done. But actually, to cover all of this paper and to get some of these washes, you simply wouldn't get the paint fast enough on the brush from a pan. So it's easier to use tube paint. So let's have a look at the tubes then. So the tubes generally come in, these are 2 sizes. You can buy the smaller one, which is 8 mils, and this is roughly about £3 at the minute. And also the 21 mil, if you can afford that, and that's between £5 and £8, depending where you buy them from. So the other thing is to talk about this range again, because I would recommend Winsor & Newton and this Cotman range, as I've talked about before. The Cotman range is a student or graduate range. They make paints, paper, brushes, all in this range, and when you're getting started with watercolours, it's really good to start with these, because if you start paying for very expensive artist quality ones and you don't take to them, then it's quite a lot of money to lay out. So these are affordable, and if you can't manage those, if you just buy the small tubes. So that's the tube paint. So let's just now consider the quality of paint. So when you buy paint, you will see, and it is confusing when you go to the shops and you see all these paints and all these different colours and you're not quite sure what to get. And certainly my local supplier does both qualities. So this is the student quality that we've talked about, and this actually is the artist quality watercolour. So it's again by Winsor & Newton, and it's French ultramarine, so it is still the ultramarine blue. This one's only 14 mils, and if you turn it over, I bought this many years ago, and this was £10.98 when I bought it. So often they come in at 3 times the price of the student quality, and that's nearly always down to the pigments. So there's a lot more pigment in this one than there is in this one, and essentially you shouldn't need to use as much of this one as well. So just for as an example of that, I'll just show you. I did a little sketch up earlier just to show you the different qualities in paints actually. So as you can see, the artist quality one, this is alizarin crimson, and the artist quality one is much more vibrant, it's richer, just generally a brighter colour, and it's got a nice graduation to it. But the student quality one has still got a really nice colour to it. Yes, it's not as vibrant as this, but it also bleeds and it also paints out quite nicely. So for when you're getting started, there's absolutely nothing wrong with student quality paints. As I say, it took me years really before I made the transition, and when I'm teaching, I would always certainly use these. So that's the quality of paint I think you should go for. Okay, so now let's talk about colours. Let's move those over there for a minute. So I've actually got lots of paint, as you might imagine. It's a bit like being a kid in a sweet shop, really, when you start painting. You have all sorts of colours. And sometimes when I'm teaching, I don't want to have to mix a green every time. Sometimes it's just easier to buy one. But essentially, you don't need all these colours. When you're starting in watercolour, the thing that you actually need is 3 primary colours. So let's just talk about colours for a minute. Okay, so when you're working in watercolour, there are 3 primary colours. So there is a yellow, a red, in this case we're going to use a crimson, and an ultramarine. Now you'll probably remember from school that if you mix these, so we could have an orange, we could have a green, or we could have a purple. So actually once you've bought these, and they're called primary colours because you can't actually mix them from any other colours, so they are the ones that you must have. You can actually have a whole range of colours just with these. Now I am advising as well that you actually get a second red. So the second red I advise you to buy is a light red. Now this red is quite a terracotta, brick colour, and if you start to mix this with the blue, we actually create browns, and we also, strangely enough, create grey, which is a really good shadow colour when we're working with clouds. So my recommendation is you actually buy these 4 colours, and hopefully you can see that, and you can probably take a still of that so you can get the correct names as well. The other important thing when you're working in watercolours is that you do start to learn the correct names of the colours. So instead of just calling it blue, we're going to have ultramarine blue. And this is a cadmium yellow, alizarin, or sometimes people call that alizarin, which is a crimson. This is a very bluey red, ultramarine, and then light red is fairly straightforward. So that is really important, because if you're going to mix up a purple and you start to think, well, I can't remember which blue it was, and for example you use a indigo blue, which is much darker, and you mix it with the purple, you have a completely different colour. So it is important that you try to learn the correct names. And the other thing I just want to mention is this word hue, because some people get a little bit hung up about this, H-U-E. When you look at the dictionary definition, it basically means colour or shade. And what it means in relation to these colours is that it's actually a paler version, if you like, from the original source of the paint. Many years ago, paints were produced with metals like manganese and cobalt, and some toxic materials actually. And obviously as time's gone on, those have been removed. So the cadmium yellow here is a pale hue. So this will actually be lighter, obviously, because it's pale hue, than the actual cadmium yellow hue, which is, as you can see, is a much richer, probably a purer colour. But don't worry about the word hue. You don't really need to take that on board at the minute. It's just something for information. So they're the colours that I suggest you buy. And as I say, the reds actually are really strong colours. So if you're kind of on a bit of a budget, my suggestion is just get those in 8mm because they go a long way. But if you can manage, get the bigger ones, because you'll be surprised when we start laying down washes how much paint you need. So, and the other thing as well is just to say that with the pans, as I say, these actually will come in. You can also buy these in student and artist quality as well. But like I say, I think if you can leave those well alone for now, and let's have some tube paint. Lovely. Right, so the next thing we just need to talk about is palettes. So I'm just going to move these away, and let's talk about palettes, because clearly you need something to put your paint in. Okay, so most of the suppliers sell plastic palettes. Now this one is a very small one, as you can see, and actually we just bought this for demo purposes because I don't actually use plastic, but it's quite sufficient for what you're doing. Plastic ones are okay. The most important thing when you're buying a plastic palette is that you buy one with large wells. So this is actually one not to buy because it's got very small tiny wells, and as you can imagine, with a larger brush and some, you're not going to get very much paint in there. So the one I suggest you buy is there is one that looks like a daisy with a circle in the middle and petals around the edge, and that's really good because you get about 6, you probably get 7-8 wells. So buy one with large wells. Now my preference always is a ceramic one. So I have 2 examples here, and the reason I like these is because they're weightier, so they don't flip up. You can also, when you've finished your paint, you can pop it in the dishwasher, which is great. But also, as you can see, each one has got quite a large amount of wells, so I can do a lot of mixing up here. And the reason this one is graduated, there is a reason for this, that it's not completely flat. So what you can do with this one, let's do it this way, is you can squeeze your paint out at the top here, and then with your brush, just bring a small amount here to mix it with the water. So what you get is two different strengths of paint. So you've got the intense paint here, if you want to make it darker, and you've got a nice wash here. So it works really, really well for getting two different strengths of paint in the same palette. So these come in at about £7–8. So ceramic ones are my preference always. As I say, they're not too big, but they're big enough for what we need. Now, if you haven't got a ceramic one or a plastic one, there's no reason why you can't just use a bog standard plate. So this is just a white plate. It is better to use a white plate because if you have one with a pattern on or a clear one, it's a bit more distracting. So, and if you have to be really careful if you're going to put paint out in a plate. Certainly you get two colours, and at a push you might get three. But you just need to be careful that you don't mix them all together. But certainly if you're doing one or two colours, a white plate is more than sufficient. So I hope that's been useful. So we've covered types of paint, the quality of paint, and the colours I suggest you buy, and go and get yourself a palette. So that's all I want to say for today. Next time we're going to talk about brushes, and we're going to talk about accessories. If you have any questions, please drop me a line on YouTube. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And I think just to say thank you for watching. So take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.